Okay, welcome to a quick video about the waypoint entry script for the Apache in the 476. We're just going to run through how to use Oliver's waypoint entry script for inputting waypoints into the Apache. This is also described fairly longhand in the syllabus document under the task that is called Operate Mission Planning Software, and that also includes in there some stuff about CombatFlite and other mission planning stuff, but this is just about really the script and how to get data into it and then onward into the aircraft. If you go to the forums, down in the bar, DCS, Oliver's thread about waypoint entry scripts, this has some requirements and also has some text instructions about how to import from the MDC, which is sort of generic to the various versions of this script. The script itself is in publications, so in publications, planning, you'll find this zip file waypoint entry script, and when you download that, what you'll find is and unzip it, a number of folders for the different aircraft, and obviously the Apache one is the one we're talking about. Inside there are 4 files. The only file you need to be concerned at any point with is the Excel file. The others just sit there in the background, and that is it. I think they all need to be kept together in the same folder to run successfully. You do not need AutoHotkey installed on your machine to run the script. It's packaged inside the script folder. We're going to open that Excel file, and if it's the first time you open it, you're going to get some warnings about enabling editing and then about enabling Visual Basic content because it has Visual Basic code within it. And this is what you're going to be presented with. There are 2 tabs that you are going to be interested in: mandatory keybinds and points. The grayed out tabs at the bottom contain the script settings, and just a paste pad that the script uses for putting temporary data in, and you do not need and should not edit any of those settings. On the points page, the only fields that you should manually edit are yellow, so the columns for type, identifier, free text and location. If you are editing in the white fields, you are doing something wrong, and what the script will do I do not know, but do not manually edit the white fields. Before you use the script, you need to do some mandatory key bindings. There's no DCS BIOS for the Apache yet. All of these scripts work by just sending key commands to the simulator, so you need to map your entire keyboard unit and some other commands, including some MPD buttons, to these key commands. Make sure that when you're mapping the MPD buttons, they're all on the same MPD. That's kind of important. And also be aware, obviously, that in DCS, you can have more than one keyboard combination mapped to a command. So a lot of people have their physical keyboard, A to Z letters, mapped to the KU A to Z. You don't have to get rid of that mapping. You just add these. You go into DCS, click on the command, use control and you know the letter, and then you'll have 2 different keyboard commands that will map to the same DCS command. So you don't have to remove your existing binding, and it shouldn't conflict. We've deliberately chosen left plus right control as the modifiers because that's kind of odd, and very few people will have stuff that will conflict with that. Once you've done all of the mapping, which you just need to do for the front and back seat once, you can then start bringing data into the planning tool. There's 3 ways of getting data into here. Essentially, one is from the MDC on the 476 website. One is by copy and pasting from another Excel document, normally one generated by CombatFlite. And the final way is just to manually, obviously, type data in here. So we'll look at each of those. The first one is to use an MDC, and I think that's probably the way that people will start using this in IQT flights and basic training flights, but probably is going to be less common as we do more operations with the aircraft. So we've got an example MDC here, and this shows a variety of different ways that you can format your names for your waypoints to populate these fields. Now, in the tool, there are 3 fields that need to be populated. Or 4. There's the type, which is either control measure, hazard, waypoint, or target and threat. There's the number, which is sequential, and you can't control that in the aircraft, and the script automatically generates that in sequence to match what the aircraft will automatically generate. The identifier is the type of the point, so battle position or enemy unit or friendly armor, whatever. The free text is three-digit free text, and then the MGRS. Now this is always going to be an 8-digit MGRS for the Apache, but the script will accept 6, 8, or 10-digit MGRS, and it will make them all into 8 digits for the aircraft. In the MDC, the way it's going to generate those, the first letter of the name is going to be the waypoint type. So that's either C for a control measure, W for a waypoint, H for a hazard, or T for a target and threat. The last 2 letters are going to be the point type, so airfield general, waypoint, battle position, tower under 1,000 feet, etc., etc. The first 3 characters of the fixed point are going to be the free text, and the location is obviously the location. The location needs to include the full grid identifier because even though that is pre-populated in the Apache, the script has no way of knowing where the aircraft is. So it can't say whether it has to type in these numbers because they're different to where the current aircraft location is, or whether it can leave the defaults. So every time the script enters a waypoint, it's actually going to clear the entire string of the location that pops up, and it's going to retype the whole lot from the very beginning. So you have to provide the whole lot from the very beginning. The script is not going to use elevation. It's going to automatically accept the digital terrain elevation provided by the aircraft, which should be ground level. There's very few occasions in the Apache that we're going to want to put waypoints not on the ground. So if you do want to do that, you're going to have to go back and edit that point manually later, which you can do, and change the elevation. So if you've got elevations, you're going to have to do that manually. The script isn't going to allow for that. Once you've made your MDC and your route, the way you get it into the script is really simple. You just follow the instructions on the thread, which is that you highlight everything from and including flight plan all the way down to notes inclusive. You go copy, you go back to your Excel page, and you just hit import. And this has automatically imported those points. You can see it's done waypoints, control measures, hazards. It's auto-numbered in sequence, so 51, 52, 53 for the control measures, 1, 2, 3 for waypoints, hazard 4, because that uses the same database section as waypoints, so those go sequentially, waypoint 3, hazard 4, etc. Identifiers are as they are, and then the free text is, like we say, truncated, and the locations here, and then over here on the right you can see the location that's actually going to be entered into the aircraft, and you can see they're all 8 digits regardless of how we've created them. So that was really easy. Of note, it has not done anything with the first line except the identifier and the free text. So you'll see that those are hard-coded to be a control measure. It's obviously the first one, control measure 51, and it's hard-coded to accept the location of the aircraft at that time. And that is just because by SOP in the 7th, we're always going to put Charlie 51 as our first control measure, and it's going to be our starting location, whether that's an airfield, a FARP, forward operating base, whatever. It will read the point type and it will read the point free text, but it will not read point free text here. It will not read location, and it will always be Charlie 51. If you leave those blank, it just won't enter anything. And equally, if you try and put something else in the top line of the MDC, you could just leave the top line completely empty. You'll still get the same result. If you try and put a waypoint in here, it will just be ignored. So just be aware of that. There's no easy way around that other than just you manually remembering that that needs to be your start location. So we've got those waypoints in by that method. Now, obviously we can also copy and paste data into here, and the most common starting place that we'd want to get that from would probably be CombatFlite, although clearly could be anywhere. Now the round trip for this in CombatFlite is relatively straightforward. We've got a flight plan here, and it's got some points. We're going to go to the flight, right click, go to kneeboard, hit the flight name, and we can see it's going to generate this. And really all we're interested in for the purposes of this is this section down here. It defaults to lat long. We're going to change that to MGRS. We're going to hit generate. It's going to generate a load of 10-digit grids for us. We're then going to say export to Excel and we're going to use a custom template. And the custom template we're going to use, I mean, we could use a default CombatFlite one, but it's got a lot of data that we don't need. We could also just use a custom template, and it's going to ask us for the custom template. And we're going to use this one, which is in the planning folder as well for you to download. So we're going to choose that. It's going to say where do we want to put that spreadsheet. We might as well put it on the desktop. And it's going to make that Excel file and then ask us if we want to open it, which we do. And so we're going to open that Excel spreadsheet, and it looks like this if we use the custom template. So it's got the waypoint identifier from CombatFlite, and it's got the waypoint locations. And so, for example, imagine those are our route. Obviously, that's the start point. We could just grab those, copy, go back to our data entry tool, and we can just paste these in if we want. And obviously, if you want to keep the formatting, you can just paste values. And there you go, it's pasted in a load of 10-digit grids, and they've been appropriately truncated down to 8 digits for the aircraft. So there we go, there's a flight plan entered very quickly. If we wanted to, obviously, we could use the CombatFlite names as our free text. Again, pasting just values, so we could do that if we want. That one's kind of overflowed. Call that bolder. Ignore that for the moment. Because again, typing in the wrong space. Like I say, that's got to be three digits. So there we go. So you can see there's some validation in there. Like I was trying to type something longer than 3 digits in there, and it's just not going to let me. So we could put those in. Now this ties into how we manually enter stuff, because what CombatFlite isn't going to do, it hasn't got fields for the types and the identifiers. So normally, if this was a flight plan that we were bringing in from CombatFlite, these would all be waypoints. So we just make a waypoint. You can see this is a drop down with the 4 types. So we just might as well make that a waypoint and copy it down. And you can see again, it's auto numbered everything for us. If we want to have some types, bear in mind these will default to waypoint type in the aircraft, but if we want to force them to be waypoints, we could do that. And equally, we could make one a start point and one a release point for our route. We could try and make them a different type of point. But what you will see is if we try and do something that's not compatible, then we'll get an alert. So we've just tried to put a control measure type into a waypoint, and it won't let us do that. So if we want to, we could change these. Now, one of the weaknesses you'll see of the script is if I type this in here and then change this, it won't revalidate this cell. So I've now got a target, but a control measure type. Now, if I go into that and try and edit it, it will now fail its validation. So just be aware that because it is Excel, it's not going to constantly validate these cells all of the time. So you do need to fill in, if you're doing this manually, you need to choose the type first before you then go on to put the identifier in. And then the validation will work. So that's how we import from CombatFlite. We can just paste stuff in. And clearly, we can also just type in useful information, like a friendly unit, that's a company, and we could put a location in. And it will generate a grid from that for us. And again, these can be 6, 8, or 10-digit MGRS grids. We put in some enemy armor. And it will generate that. So all of that can then be edited. So all of your data sources, your MDC, your CombatFlite, any information you have, intelligence, target locations, hazards, they can all be populated, and you can fill up this grid until you are happy with it. Once you're happy with it, we're going to create a script. So once we've done that, we just hit create, and it flashes and something happens. And in the task tray, you will find, it's actually on my other screen, a little icon that looks like this guy will pop up, and that is the script. And if you right click, you'll see on him that, I don't think I can get him to show down here, but if you do right click on that little guy, you'll see that there's various options for running and exiting the script, and it is clearly an auto hotkey script that is sitting in your task tray. So what we're going to do is we'll now jump in the aircraft and we'll input some waypoints into the aircraft. Okay, so here we are in the aircraft, and we're going to actually just input from the waypoint entry script into the Apache. One thing just to mention is obviously that first waypoint, Charlie 5-1 control measure, is going to go and use the aircraft's present position. So if you haven't completed enough of an alignment for this to be accurate when you run the script, your first waypoint, Charlie 5-1, will be, or your first point, Charlie 5-1, will be inaccurate. So you can run this before you've got an accurate present position, and then just go back in if you want to later in the start procedure and edit it, or you can just wait until you've got an accurate position there in PP, and then run the script. So we're just going to show over here the left MFD, MPD, and the KU, and we're just going to hit that keyboard command, left win insert. There's nothing else to do, we've already generated the script. So we're going to hit that, and you're going to see it's going to go to TSD, and it's going to start inputting points. There's Charlie 5-1 created, and it's going to type in and accept the altitudes, and you can watch it there typing in an airfield general, A52, a battle position in Charlie 5-3. Here's, I think, waypoint 2, W02 with a waypoint 3. There's a waypoint with some free text, and a tower in hazard. There we go. And if we look at coordinates, we can see in coordinates, targets and threats, we've got some pre-populated ones from DCS. That's a feature at the moment. But here's the ones we put in, control measures. You can see the various control measures and waypoints and hazards that we entered from the script. And that is it.